Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Living a Multidimensional Conscious Life Through the Enneagram, an overview of a groundbreaking year-long immersive Enneagram certification program. My name is Stephen Dine. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I'm really blessed to be with you here, getting to learn and explore from the leading edge of our thinking about the Enneagram and how it can be a tool for our personal liberation and really the liberation of more human potential in humankind. We're going to get to explore this with actually three pioneers here today. We have renowned Enneagram teacher and lineage carrier and co-author of Wisdom, the Enneagram, Russ Hudson. And we also have Enneagram teacher and innovator and founder of Inspiration Consciousness School, Jessica Dibb. And later in the program, we are going to have special guest, Julie Harris, to also share with us as well. So Russ and Jessica, welcome to today's program.
Thank you, Stephen. Always great to be here.
Yes, it's wonderful to be with you.
Great. Well, I want to let everyone know up front that we are going to be talking quite a bit about the year-long immersive certification program. And we are going to be offering this again because of the extraordinary feedback we got from people who went through it. High demand for expertise in the Enneagram. It's applicable in so many different ways. And this faculty team is truly exceptional, and we really believe this is the most comprehensive Enneagram certification program out there. So we're really blessed to offer it. It's called the Enneagram Certification Program in Conscious Living, a depth approach to life-changing inner work through the Enneagram. And as we share about that, particularly in the second half of the hour, we'll also be bringing Julie Harris in to talk about her role as integration faculty as well. So let's begin, Russ and Jessica, with our time together with a little bit more of the sort of the high-level teachings and content around Enneagram and really why it's such a powerful tool for living a more presence-based, conscious lifestyle. So Russ, you want to share first?
Sure. The way we're looking at it, and one of the compelling things about the Enneagram is not so much the initial way that a lot of us learn about it, which is these 9 categories of people. That's an interesting place to start. The original purpose of the Enneagram wasn't so much that. It was to show us how we get off track with our mindfulness, with our kindness, with our embodiment, right? And as such, it's an invitation to come back to ourselves in a profound way. And while, you can learn the distinctions of the Enneagram types, the descriptions pretty quickly, the whole journey of learning how that information applies to us reintegrating, becoming more whole in ourselves, getting more grounded, getting more available on our heart level, in our deeper mind and so forth, that's not so commonly available. And I've just never found anything in my journey that was more powerful than the Enneagram in terms of helping us put together the deeper places we can explore in consciousness and our lived lives in the practical world. It really is a way of bridging the internal and external life of us human beings.
Beautifully said. Jessica, you want to add to that?
Well, I think at the core of every human being are 2 things. One is the desire to love and to be loved and to be love itself. I mean, we're literally born wired to love. We will love our parents in the face of however they treat us. And also at the core of us, though, is the wound of abandonment. And whether we experience that wound as abandonment in our lived lives as human beings, with the particular relationships that we have with our caregivers or our culture, or in addition to that, or instead of, whether we experience that core abandonment as separation from creation itself, from the creator. For some people, that would be, it's like the fear that we all carry is that we will be separated, that we will not belong, that we will not be a part of something. And what the Enneagram does is show us how, in response to that core fear of abandonment, we have a particular set of behaviors, a particular way and perspective of looking at the world and life and what's happening to us that is defensive in nature, and it is compensatory in nature. It is not allowing us to reside in and trust the deeper potential of what we actually are as creation itself. And I have been on a search my whole life about the way to unlock that fear for myself and for the people that I love and for the people that I get to support in my vocation. And I have never found anything as specific as the Enneagram in its specificity, its particular way that it can show each of us how the way that we are trying to cope with that fear of abandonment, the way that we're trying to compensate for it, is to overuse or misuse the gifts we have and to kind of develop an identity around those gifts rather than just trusting the naturalness of them. And that skews our way of being in the world, and we stop using many of the other capacities that we have. And I think that's the other incredible part about the Enneagram, is that it shows us 8 other ways that we could be doing life, that we could be relating to ourselves and others, that we're kind of poverty stricken about because we're overusing this one way in an imbalanced way that takes us into an egoic perspective of it, rather than trusting the essence of it is coming from life itself and life force itself. So I think that's the Enneagram is unparalleled in its ability to illuminate those points for us and lead us home.
Beautiful. And I really appreciate that emphasis on how embracing this multiplicity of perspectives and viewpoints of life actually really enriches our own perspective and also the understanding of the other. I'm wondering, Russ, if you can share a little bit about why having that understanding, that multidimensional understanding, is so helpful for people working in some sort of healing capacity with others.
I think when you're learning about the Enneagram, there's 2 immediate benefits that come from it. One of them is you learn how to get out of your own way, which is pretty much what Jessica was talking about, that we tend to put kind of blinders on, kind of seeing things from a very truncated perspective. We don't realize that because most of our life we've been like it. And then suddenly you start to peel that back a little bit and, oh my gosh, there's all these other ways of being and looking at things that I didn't realize. So in terms of being able to be there for somebody, to be able to get out of my limited perspective or the agenda that I have for them, whether or not it's their agenda, is a huge thing, and not easier said than done, right? We have to actually learn how that happens. But the other side of it is, of course, you start to get more appreciation of where other people are coming from and more capacity to meet them where they might be coming from, which of course facilitates them getting out of their narrow perspective. So if I've learned about what these Enneagram points are like, not just as descriptions, but actually explored through practices and so forth, the felt sense of them, it really opens me up to a much wider range of people that I can engage, support, help, facilitate, as the case may be. And I think clients and students really feel when somebody can do that. People know the difference between when I'm just spieling what some teaching that I've learned or doing the protocol I learned in whatever coaching or therapy training I had versus my ability to dance with a client or dance with my students in a way that we're in a creative process together and discovering what is going to help lead them to a more liberated life. I think people really can feel that. And it's more that what we're doing is more in that direction. You know, it's not just about memorizing a bunch of descriptor words or something. It's about what is it like to occupy these 9 Enneagram points. As Jessica was saying, get out of my own box. You've heard me say, Stephen, many times, I say, I don't want to be put in the box. And I have to make it with a little bit of a sarcastic voice, but I'm always telling people the Enneagram doesn't put you in a box. It shows you the one you're already in and the way out of it. And so when we're out of the box, we can do a lot more for ourselves and for others.
That's great. Jessica, I want to build on that.
You know, in addition to all the things Russ said, which I totally concur with, I'll add 2 other things. One is that I think the Enneagram is one of the most powerful vehicles and tools for immediate felt sense of compassion for other people. Because what it teaches you is why people are doing what they're doing. So you stop pathologizing. So for a therapist or a healer, that's amazing because it gives you a greater unconditional field. You know, what Carl Rogers used to call unconditional positive regard that we all of us in the healing profession have really taken on. When you understand that, you know, this person in their temperament, in order to deal with this core fear and abandonment, is misusing or overusing, for instance, their ability to analyze things. You don't any longer now look at that at kind of like, oh, they're cold, they're missing something, they don't feel a lot of empathy for other people. You have compassion for the fear. You really understand their core fear is that they feel like the world is not rational. It's not aware of itself, that people are running around without awareness about what they're doing. And they're trying to compensate by being hyper aware and trying to explain to people what the truth is. Well, now as a therapist or just as a partner, you know, a spouse, a parent or a child, you can now understand from the point of view of compassion, but they're afraid. And that's why they're doing this. And all of a sudden, it's a game changer. You are open to understanding this person in a way that you never have before. You get more creative about how you might relate to them so that they can embrace other parts of themselves that they might not have been able to or willing to embrace before. And I would say that leads me to the second piece I'll add, which is mirroring. You know, we know that in the healing profession, in addition to the unconditional positive regard, that's sort of the first step. The second step is this idea of mirroring. Really, you know, we have these mirror neurons, but it's the idea that when people feel gotten, when they feel seen, when they feel heard, their nervous system relaxes. They feel a sense of belonging. They feel like they're connected. And that would lead to the third part of the therapeutic process or healing, which is a willingness to change, a willingness to try something different. And so I think that what the Enneagram does is it teaches us actually what each of the temperaments and types and points are needing and wanting in order to feel seen and valued and heard. And now you're able to use, in a genuine, authentic way, the language, the point of view, the perspectives, the understanding of that type. And that mirroring is incredible. I mean, I have seen couples that were literally on the verge of divorce. And just by understanding each other's perspectives of their type, as well as other things that can come into play, like the instinctual drives and, you know, the orientations and things like that. It's literally like in one session, they have hope. And I've known many couples that have said the Enneagram literally saved their marriage or saved their connection and relationship. And so I think this has worldwide implications too, Stephen. We are living in a fractured world, increasingly fractured. And though there are many reasons for that, and many of them are cultural overlays, technological overlays, fear that's gotten in deeply into the system, I think part of the way that we could get out of that is to understand how other people are reacting to those realities and learn to have compassion for them and mirror them so that we can find co-creative solutions and co-creative ways of addressing the challenges that we face.
So true. The building that empathy and the mirroring really does set a different foundation for co-creation and really understanding the diversity of humanity. Russ, let's going back to you. I'd love for you to share a little bit about why the spiritual dimension or the ground of this work is so important, because a lot of presentations of the Enneagram in a more popular format tend to just focus on the personality patterns, but both of you really are sort of coming out of a much more of a depth perspective, a spiritual perspective. And why does that actually create a different relationship with the system and also in terms of the results?
Yeah, and that's a really good question, Stephen. And I don't know that anybody's asked me that quite so straight up as you just did. There are a few answers to that, but I'll just to focus for a second. I think one reason is that that's where it came from. The origins of this teaching are explicitly spiritual in nature. Now, it's popular these days to make discriminations between religion and spirituality being broader and religion being particular forms of spirituality. I think that the Enneagram, the ideas behind it run through a variety of religious traditions, mostly Western, but certainly we can see a lot of resonance with perspectives that are from the East. But I would say, just practically speaking, and Don Riso, with whom I wrote a number of books back in the day, used to discuss this with me on a fairly regular basis, trying to keep this in our foreground awareness, is that spirituality without psychology leads people often to very ungrounded and delusional places. And psychology without spirituality doesn't really take people to what their heart is looking for, the real resolutions of their issues. Psychology is hugely helpful. That if I dare say that if some of the saints and masters of history had access to some of the things we've learned about through psychology, they most definitely would have used those to help themselves on their journey or help their students, to know the stuff we get stuck in, to know how we have beliefs that we aren't aware that we have, to see the way childhood situations conditioned us in very powerful ways is no small thing. But I also think that the cultivation of awareness, which is central in all of the mystical traditions of the world, the capacity to be present with oneself, gives us a way of looking at the psychological issues without judging ourselves. And to continue what Jessica was just saying, to do so from a deepening place of compassion, right? So we're developing presence, awareness, consciousness, but we're doing it also with content. Otherwise, we go and go to our happy place. We sit and focus and do whatever we do to do that. And then we get up off of our cushion or go out into the world. And 10 minutes later, our psychological patterns are back in the driver's seat again. When you put the two together, it starts to create a kind of alchemy. And in the great traditions, the ego isn't the bad guy exactly. The ego is the very material from which we are able to do the work. It becomes almost food for the development of our being, the development of our soul, you might say in some traditions. I used to say the ego is the placenta of what's growing in us. So the more you sort of understand the relationship between the deeper layers of our consciousness, the deeper layers of what we are, and you understand what's usually running the show, and you start to transform that relationship, that means we can live it. That means we don't have to just talk about it when we're hanging out with our spiritual buddies and then be screaming at someone when they cut us off on the highway. It's like there's room for humanity. And even if we scream at someone while they cut us off on the highway, there's some kind of recognition of that. And instead of beating ourselves up, we start to grow from that experience. So, this is, I find that when both of those two come together in the right way, they're more than the sum of the parts. And they are, I would call the two together the royal road to healing and transformation, both psychology and spirituality. Yeah.
A really illuminating answer. And Jessica, I know you're coming to the Enneagram work with a really broad background in a lot of experiential modalities like breath work as well. And some of what you bring in is really creating more embodied ways of engaging the Enneagram than just a head understanding. And so I wonder if you can share a little bit about why that's so important as well, to take the concepts and turn them into embodied experience.
Well, Stephen, I think that there used to be an old adage that about, love in thought, word, and deed, and that all three were important. And I think the Enneagram, with its emphasis on the three centers of intelligence and energy, the somatic intelligence and energy, the emotional intelligence and energy, and the cognitive intelligence and energy, bring that possibility to life for people. We all want to have a life of meaning. We want to be vibrantly hear it. It's one of the most painful things about life is when you look back and feel like so many days and even months and years were wasted. And this is one of the things in that is brought forth in people that do studies of the dying and what they care about. And oftentimes they talk about how did they let so much time go by paying attention to the things that really didn't matter. And so it's one thing to know something that's illuminating, and that can be 50% of the transformation. But if our hearts are not able to stay devoted to what really matters to us, like if they get lost and distracted by emotional reactivity and fear and all of that, and if our bodies or our somatic sensation, we know this so much from the current studies on trauma, that we can want to be a certain way, but if that trauma is embedded somatically, that actually supersedes. The energy moves through the muscles faster than it moves through our brains. And this is why it's essential that if we're going to have the experience of awakening at a spiritual level, if we are going to have the experience of being the love that we were wired to be and to have that life of meaning, the body has to muscularly, and the nervous system, the glands even, have to be able to open to the flow of those energies, to the wattage or the voltage even of the experience of consciousness and awakening. And we've seen it time and time again throughout history that people, even great religious and spiritual teachers, have these realizations, but they don't have the actualization in their life. There's still these shadow parts of their behavior, and those shadow parts of their behavior often come from stored stuff in the muscles of the body, literally in the way that we're breathing, and in our nervous system. And so it is just so exciting to take the clarity and the specificity that the Enneagram brings of the three centers of energy and intelligence, and actually use that to create experiential felt senses of these energies. Just saying a little bit about your question with Russ, I'll say that spiritually, we're all have this core abandonment. It's really from creation itself where we're just not sure, that something's really got our back. And one of the things that happens in with the Enneagram is that we learn that not only are these 9 temperaments as in personalities, but there are these 9 qualities of existence itself. Like power is not just a psychological dynamic. Power is not even just a conceptual, spiritual experience. Power exists in everything. It's like it's the life force and the energy. So you begin to feel when you do the experiential exercises, these 9 qualities of existence, power and unity and blessedness and responsiveness and radiance and functioning and depth and clarity and guidance and joy and possibility. I just named a few of the words that it would be. And so to have the felt sense of those things is not only to embody them as a human being, but to realize at a spiritual level that you're not the creator of them. Everything is the creator of them. And that leads you to a magnificent spiritual experience where the ego is not running the show. You're actually participating in the collective functioning, the collective creation that is everything.
I love that picture you're painting. Well, it also speaks to, I know you two want to lead us in a practice that starts to really give an example of the kind of work you're going to be doing in the upcoming certification. So why don't we do that now?
Basically, this is a practice to integrate the different centers of intelligence. And we talk about those to Jessica's point, to your point, Stephen. It's one thing to have an idea about these. It's another thing to practice experiencing them. So we look at the 3 main centers and then how we might experience them coming together in us. First off, I find myself here and now most easily through the awareness of the body, which is to say, kinesthetic awareness, sensation. Now, an easy way into that is just finding my breath. Pretty much every tradition in the world holds a sacred place for awareness of breath. It's not thinking about it, it's more like sensing it, being with it. Oh, yeah, there it is. Catching that movement of your chest, your diaphragm, the way your body moves with the breath. Usually that makes it slow down a tad and also deepens the breath. And if I stay with that impression, I start to feel more sensation throughout my body. It might be in some places more vivid than others. That's pretty normal. But I want to set my intention to put my attention in sensation. It's not something the ego consciousness usually does, but it starts to give me a landing pad in a place where the other energies and qualities can actually meet, because the body is here and now, can't be anywhere else. And a lot of stuff we learn takes us out of the body. It's psychology, we call it dissociation. That's not spiritual awakening. It's what we're doing most of the time. But to come back to myself with each breath and deepening that groundedness in myself.
So what happens in the heart when we are in that here and now? When we are in the immediacy of our breathing? What happens is that the heart is more revealed. what happens is that both the vulnerability of the heart and what that points to, which is its great sensitivity, its capacity to be attuned to the needs of ourselves and others, the needs of the earth, the needs of life. That becomes a little bit more online when we're here and now and breathing. And so that may feel somewhat vulnerable. And most of us may have developed many habits of protecting that great sensitivity of our heart. And right now, if we continue breathing deeply, we allow ourselves to feel the breath moving through the center of our chest. We can breathe with an honoring of our heart on the inhale and a relaxing of our heart into our lives on the exhale. And when we do that, it allows the deepest yearning of our hearts, which in a sense is to love, to be loved, and to be love itself, and all of the things that that means about ways to love and ways to be loved and ways to be love and creativity in life. All of those can begin to be felt more clearly. One by one, with each breath, we can lift each yearning of our heart, and we can attend to it. And from that place, our life will really change.
So if we are there in our body and heart, it gives our mind a break. We all make the mind the bad guy, but we're focused on it about 99% of the time, but not even the best part of our mind. Our mind is sort of running to keep the idea that I'm here. But as I actually get here through the body and through this compassionate heart, courageous heart, the mind doesn't have to make up stuff. It just can relax into its natural openness, clarity, stillness, quiet. And in this place, I can receive inspiration, new wisdom, and just this sort of joyful inner freedom. And it could be said, once the mind actually simmers down a bit, I'm actually beginning to be here. I, not a self concept, begin to appear. So much of our life we're trying to heal self concepts, but they have no inherent reality. Coming home to myself in my body, heart, and mind begins to bring together the truth of what I am, and then that process has its own momentum.
We can breathe now, where we actually physically, somatically sense the breath expanding our belly, expanding our chest, and illuminating or awakening our brain, our head. In every breath, we can feel the sensations in the belly, the heart, and the head, in soma, psyche, and soul. And as we feel that, as we receive it, as we sense it, we can begin to bring the great intelligence of our sensations, the great intelligence of our emotions, our heart, our love, and the great intelligence of our awareness to be with us every moment, in every situation, with every person, in every time. So thank you for joining us in that practice, everyone.
Beautiful. Well, thank you both. And it really just gives such a taste of the just invitation that you both offer into the depths. I really just feel like so like more relaxed and more open when you bring us more deeply into those centers. Well, I think we've talked a little bit on the high level about your orientation and the benefits of the Enneagram. And now I think it's time to really give people a deeper experience of what's on offer here with your full year-long program, which I'm really just so grateful that we are able to bring this out to the world through the Shift Network. It truly is a one-of-a-kind offer and probably the most holistic, in-depth offer available for studying the Enneagram with people who have this depth orientation, as you two do. So the program is called Enneagram Certification Program in Conscious Living, a depth approach to life-changing inner work through the Enneagram. And you can find it laid out in detail at enneagramcertificationprogram.com, enneagramcertificationprogram.com. This is a high touch and personal program. It's also high commitment. This is an investment of time, of money, of energy. And as a result, you get so much more benefit in being able to apply the wisdom of the Enneagram in your life. And if you're a professional, using it in the life of the clients that you're working with as well. So there's an application process to ensure that there's a right alignment and that it really is a good fit to make this year-long deep dive. There's a lot of layers of teaching and integration, and we're going to share some about that, but it's a very comprehensive way to invite the depths of the Enneagram into your life and into a deeper level of embodied knowing in your practice, if you have a practice. So in the first version of this, we had a wide variety of people who were working in every settings, from coaching to therapy to prisons to, I know there's people involved in police forces, and there's a lot of different applications in addition to just your own accelerated growth and awakening as well. First, Jessica, maybe if you want to share a little bit on the high level of like how people's life change and their understanding of how to work with the Enneagram changes as a result of taking this full year-long immersion certification with you.
We were committed from the beginning that there would be three aspects of this program. One would be a very rigorous, academically oriented, as well as philosophically oriented understanding of the authentic original teachings of the Enneagram. Along the lines of what Russ was talking about earlier, where it's really the psychological and the spiritual both. Then the second piece was about the experiential, which you asked me about, that we would make sure that people had the embodied experience of all these 9 energies, the instinctual drives, how to let go and let the energy of consciousness itself, presence itself, be what is functioning. So high degree also of experiential exercises with everything that we do. And then the third piece was community. And this program, in addition to the teaching lectures and then the integration sessions, which bring even more of the experiential work to them, and we'll be bringing our beautiful friend and colleague Julie on to talk about that too, because she adds to that part. Then also there's this community part where we are seen by one another. We are in our vulnerability, in our gifts. We are learning from coaches in the program. And so everybody becomes part of a learning lab of 12 to 15 people that meet regularly and do exercises together and give each other feedback. And we found that many people have formed lifelong relationships. Russ and I had no intention of teaching this program again, but we had so many people, hundreds of people, that literally said their life had been irrevocably changed for the better. And that it was probably the most powerful program that they had ever done. And yes, many professionals did it, but many people who describe themselves as being in the last third of their life also did the program. People who want to turn inwards and make sure they've really contacted the most essential parts of themselves.
Great description and amazing some of the impacts. Russ, you want to build on what makes this an exciting program for you to teach as well?
Yeah, I mean, well, ditto to everything Jessica was saying. I was very impressed. I've been teaching the Enneagram a long time, and we wondered, can we really pull this off? Can we make this happen online with the Shift Network? I mean, this is a big lift, but we did. And as Jessica was saying, I was very moved and touched by the responses we got, the testimonials of people just sharing how hugely impactful. And I'd just say also in terms of online learning, the Enneagram is something that works well this way. There we are doing embodied practices, we're doing labs, we're sharing, and that's a huge part of it. But there's also a body of wisdom teachings to master. This is not a quick and easy. Learning the basics of the Enneagram, you can learn about that in an hour. To really be a master, an effective purveyor of this is a deep dive that requires lots of dedication. And this has a heck of a lot of content. It's not, it's not just like we're doing the same thing all the time. It keeps deepening and expanding. And I think we had one thing that Jessica and I were both amazed. There were a number of people in the course who already had certified in other Enneagram training programs. They'd studied extensively. They were teachers. But when they really went into this longer dive and really steeped themselves in it, in this holding container that this program offered, they were shocked themselves. And we heard over and over, oh, I thought I knew the Enneagram before, and now, oh my gosh, Julie and Jessica and I, all of us got that feedback from a lot of people. So I would say that, there's such a temptation in the modern world to be a dilettante, to just dabble in a little of this, a little of that, and so forth. And, that can be interesting in the process of figuring out what your thing is. But if you've got a feeling that the Enneagram calls you, that this is something that moves your heart, I learned how well we took people on a journey through this whole program, and it delivered what I hoped it would deliver for people, that they came out of it really knowing the Enneagram, knowing the different components, being able to talk about that meaningfully with another human being, but most importantly, that they learned how to embody it.
Beautiful. I love hearing about all the impact it had in different people's lives. It's great. So we're really excited to have a new version. So let's talk a little bit about that. And we don't have a lot of time, but at least to give a little bit of a highlight of some of the curriculum and the overview. So Unit 1 is called Foundations of the Enneagram for laying the building blocks you'll use throughout the year, integrating body, heart, and mind.
Yeah, just the basics. We're just talking about the 9 points, what they are, but also it's like a basic orientation. People come into the Enneagram with a lot of notions about what it's about, and we clarify, here's how we're holding it. Here's what we've known is the right orientation with the Enneagram that will actually help you.
One important thing there is that we're not teaching descriptions of the types. We're teaching about the core inner dynamic that goes on with each person in terms of their fear, their basic desires, all the what is really going on psychologically and spiritually that causes them to do these things.
Great. Unit 2, embodying the power and wisdom of the instinctual drives and subtypes, dissolve psychic disconnection and live in your body.
Well, this is a huge area of interest to a lot of people into the Enneagram these days. This has to do with the so-called subtypes of the drives of self-preservation, sexual or attraction, social or bonding and connection, and how we human beings need those. But once we step into our ego patterns, they get out of whack in various ways. We have certain habits with all that. So we learn how to work with those habits again to restore a kind of inner balance and equilibrium.
Unit 3, cultivating the virtues, develop the potential of the human heart to stay open in the midst of any emotions or circumstances.
So we often mistake the emotional reactivity of our heart and our emotions as what our heart is. And there's a much deeper heart, what George Gurdjieff called the neutral heart, which is actually the heart which can hold everything. It can hold all feelings, it can hold all situations, it can hold change. From a place of some of these virtues that would be things like equanimity, serenity, courage, and each of the points, each of the 9 types and points has the capacity to transform the fear-based behavior that they have and let go of it enough that the real quality that they've been after can start to be developed as a human being. So when we get into the 3rd unit, we're really starting to go into some of the deeper psycho-spiritual transformational work.
Unit 4, the holy ideas, the higher mind and the flowering of logic, intuition, and vision. Cultivate the capacity for creative solutions and perspectives.
Again, good title, accurate description. Holy ideas, the name's a little off-putting to some folks, but basically they are various states of non-dual awareness that tend to open up as we become conscious of our fixated mental patterns. And here's the bad news and the good news. The bad news is if you got an ego, you got a fixated mental pattern. You're not seeing reality. So as we see that, as we work through our fixated view, it relaxes, it kind of opens up to these kind of non-dual perspectives that some of the big kind of, Advaita Vedanta and Buddhist teachers and so forth speak about. But also we're talking about how as that happens, we recover the ability to think, which is lost in most human beings. Just as emotional reactivity is not the deeper heart, the scattered yakety yak in our head is not thinking. And so there's a process of actually clarifying our mind so we can think and discover stuff.
Unit 5, living closer to essence to access higher wisdom and the divine.
This unit is kind of the culminating unit of that whole section, unit 1 through 5, because at our core, we want to be authentic. We want to have a life of meaning. We want to be love. And this is where we take everything that we've learned and we begin to understand that all of the experiences that we're having in life and everything that we can cultivate about ourselves is not created by a separate I. It's created by creation. It's created by the I that is we. It is created by everything that exists. And so we begin to study what are called the essential energies or the essential components that come through these 9 different energies and dynamics that exist not only in human beings, but in reality itself. And it's really these spirit, in a sense, it's like where people who have that mystical yearning to really get a sense of fulfillment, because here we also relate these essential qualities to the spiritual search, the desire for union, for merging, for realization, for illumination of the divine itself. And yet we keep it very connected to everything that we've studied before that about embodiment, about the instinctual drives, about the virtues, that these are qualities that can be experienced in a human life. They're not something about leaving the body. So this is a very exciting unit. We also have the respected Reverend Cynthia Bourgeot does one of the classes of this particular unit.
Beautiful. Well, again, there's even more details at enneagramcertificationprogram.com, and we're going to have to do the next ones a little bit quicker. But Unit 6 is the art of recognizing the Enneagram types of others, gain insight to yourself and others.
We bring in some experts in identifying type. And while, we don't want to be sloppy or reckless about how we do that. So there's a certain teaching about under what conditions, how do you help someone find their type and so forth. But if you're being hired as an Enneagram person and you can't do this, it doesn't make much sense. You have to have that skill. So it's really an exercise in exploring that.
Unit 7, methods and practices for illuminating pathways to growth and transformation.
Well, Stephen, that builds on what we were talking about earlier. It's quite an extensive unit. I think there's like 8 to 10 classes where we experience the Enneagram through practices, through breath work, through Qigong, through movement, through coaching, through somatic exercises, so that people come out of that unit really feeling like their bodies have been changed, their minds have been changed too, of course. And we also want people to see, have the lived experience that these 9 energies can be applied to anything that you do, meditation, cooking, whatever it might be. And so it's a really exciting bring it to life unit.
Unit 8, the Enneagram is a tool for cultural competency and inclusivity, support the movement towards equity.
We bring in Dr. Deborah Egerton and some other teachers about inclusivity and equity. And we look at how the Enneagram can help us reduce our tendency to other human beings, to make people other, but also to learn how to teach it in a broader panoply of cultural settings, so that we're not assuming that our cultural setting is the only one that's out there.
Unit 9, building transformational communities with the Enneagram for safety, learning, creativity, and innovation.
Well, we bring in Dr. Deborah Uten to teach alongside us for those 3 classes in that. That's just essential at this point. First of all, the Enneagram is almost unparalleled in its ability to have us see what would be needed to create true community where you value what each person is bringing, where no one is left out, literally. And so it's a very exciting unit of exploring what we can be aware of ways to do that, and also where we might be not looking at certain things that we're doing that break community.
Unit 10, a scientific approach to the Enneagram for reaffirming the validity of this important life path.
Well, we bring in, not surprisingly, people who are looking at the Enneagram from that perspective, including Dr. Dan Siegel and some other noted people who are exploring the frontiers of, is there a biological basis to this? Can we understand the Enneagram beyond just our philosophical stances? Are there underlying scientific bases to this? And I remember Jerome, and we have several people who bring really interesting insights into that side of it.
Yeah, Jerome brings in the healthcare aspect, Russ, like how that could actually affect us medically and health-wise. Yeah.
Yes.
And finally, Unit 11, implications of the work, how the Enneagram can continue to transform you and your contribution to the world.
Well, that is essentially just what it says. It's like taking everything we've learned and now we're going to take it to the streets. How is that going to happen? And part of that was some teaching, but part of it also was launching people into some of the projects that Jessica was talking about earlier, where people actually explored, how do I want to manifest this in the world? And getting support and community talking about that and then actually doing it.
What a great curriculum. It's amazing the depth and breadth of what you're going to be covering. And I know that that's just part of the program, is what the content. It's also really important, the integration sessions and the learning labs as well. And so let's talk about those. And we'll bring forward Julie Harris, who's our lead on the integration sessions. And first, want to say a little bit about her role and her background.
Well, Julie has been with us for so many years, working with us, studying with us, and I have to tell you how enormous her contribution was to this program and how important she was to the people who went through it. Because, yes, they're the classes where we're learning the material, but then we have to look at how it's impacting us. And so we have these tremendous labs that Julie was really the director for.
And then in the integration sessions, as you know, I love to create experiential exercises, and so does Julie. And since she's a different type and has different instinctual stack and all of that, she just brought in these magnificent experiential exercises that everyone really appreciated. We really couldn't have imagined doing this program again without her, because her perspective, her living through the studying with Russ and I for years and years, I think gave her a unique insight into what the students really could use and need in terms of this process.
Julie, you want to say a few words?
Yeah. We get to play with this material. Like, it's serious, but we can also play with it. And what I like to do is sort of bring in different angles. Each of us, we're talking about how each of us is different. And so different methods, different kinds of play hit each of us differently. And so through the integration sessions, we'll get to experience a lot of different ways of working with, feeling, being present with this material. And there's something created in each session that is special, because we also usually, if not every time, have the opportunity for people to volunteer to come forward and be coached during those sessions. And not only does the person who puts themselves bravely forward receive a tremendous amount from that experience, but everyone who is witnessing and participating really takes in, what Jessica was saying. Like, you begin to really feel what it's like to be this type, and you begin to find that in yourself too. So there's a beautiful community that's also created during these integration sessions. And I feel really grateful to be back and to play with a new group of people.
It's important what Julie was saying about the coaching part that goes on, very personal in each of these integration sessions, because the people who do this go around are going to get 3 integration sessions every month, one with Russ, one with me, and one with Julie. And so it's going to be very extensive this time around.
Jessica, you want to share a little bit about the learning labs as well?
Essentially, the learning labs will be about 12 to 15 people. And by the way, we have people that can do this program from all over the world. You could be in Japan, Australia. There will be so many learning labs at different times all throughout the kind of 24-hour period. So that, we had plenty of people from Australia, for instance, able to find a learning lab. And you'll have a facilitator, somebody that has done this program before and achieved, the certification through this program, who is going to walk you through the steps in each learning lab. There'll be questions that have been created through Russ and me and Julie. There will be structures of things that are brought for discussion. And really, it's amazing how much those learning labs become a support group. I mean, people held each other through just life-changing experiences of great opening and joy, and also, of course, of great tragedy, as would happen in any group. And so you actually get the sense of having a living essence group, a living Enneagram group that's walking through your life with you.
Well, it's an amazing offering. It's so in-depth. And so I'm just going to highlight on the high level of what you get when you sign up for this program, in more detail as at enneagramcertificationprogram.com. So you can get the one teaching session that's made available every Thursday. That includes 35 sessions from Russ and Jessica, 24 sessions from special guest faculty. They're all listed. There's 3 live integration sessions each month on Wednesdays. There's 10 elective workshops, 2 facilitated learning labs, video recordings of integration sessions, audio recordings of teachings and integration sessions, transcripts, an integrative breathwork group session, interactive practices, online community, and you get the 7-module foundational course, The Ancient Spiritual Origins of the Enneagram as a Path of Self-Discovery, which is just a $297 value itself. So it's an extraordinary offer. And Russ, you want to share a little bit about why that 7-week program on the ancient spiritual origins is really foundational for the rest of the certification?
It's really helpful to understand something in the context of the Enneagram and where it comes from and what it's serving and how it's part of a broader vision of human beings and our potential role in the cosmos. So these ideas have been around for a while. I'm not saying that some person 2,000 years ago was going, yes, my child, you were a 7. I don't think that was happening. But the ideas behind all that, the framework, the idea of the centers, the idea of that there's a way we go off track, all of that was. And there's something about understanding its context that really ignites something in our heart. I can't tell you how many times I've taught this and people are, taking their notes about which type, and, oh, my friend Fred is a 3, and, oh, my wife is a 6, and, whatever. But then we hit this level of understanding the deeper roots of it, and something stirs in people. And really, that's the sensibility that I would love to have happen for everybody who engages in this course, so that when they go out into the world talking about it, sharing it, being ambassadors of this conscious life, of this inner work, that they have that activated spark. That's
Wonderful.
in a nutshell.
Wonderful. Well, it's an incredibly robust value of what you've created. And for this whole year program, the investment is just one payment of $5,000. And if you register now, you're actually going to get $500 off the tuition for a limited time, making the price $4,500. So it's a ton of value for the full year. It's really the most robust program available. The teachings are going to be made available every Thursday, and the live integration sessions every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Starting April 17th is when the program begins. And you'll get the recordings, then transcripts. So you can really keep going back to this for years to come. And I particularly invite you to go to the page at Enneagram Certification Program and read through some of the testimonials. We've heard some from Russ and Jessica about the ways that people have been touched and moved, but I actually do not have the words to describe how deeply my being has been touched. Is beautiful. There's just beautiful testimonials on the page there about just the value of the transformation provided and the value of the insights for being able to work with other people in a healing context as well. So again, all the details are at enneagramcertificationprogram.com. And I encourage you to tune in today while you've been listening. You've got the most information, and go ahead and put in an application, because if you get an application in early, you're more likely to be accelerated in the process, and also to get that $500 discount as well, since space is limited. So you really couldn't ask for a better container to go deep, open wide, and really come out with a much more multi-dimensional perspective on life and our human psychology and spirituality. So Russ and Jessica and Julie, thank you so much for today's hour. Any final thoughts for people considering diving into this beautiful program with you?
It can seem like a lot. There's a lot of material. There's a lot of things that we're doing, and it's not a small amount of money for a lot of people. But I would say you're also getting the convenience of bringing this right into your home. If we were to do an equivalent amount of teaching and training in a live setting, you'd be away at something like 6 retreats at least, weekly, 7, 8, 10-day retreats, and whatever that would be. So from the point of view of fitting it into your modern life, it's way easier and more doable, I would say. But also, I just say, if your heart has been touched by the Enneagram, if it has meant something to you, if it has opened something to you, and this calls you, I know I can't think of anything else that's out there that is equivalently concentrated as a way to go deep in understanding what this system's really all about.
Jessica?
Really just want to say from my soul to yours, everyone, from my heart to yours, that the world that you have dreamed of, the world that we have all dreamed of, it is possible. And I am humbled and joyful to say to you that this program, I think, is a significant contribution to that coming into being. If you feel like, oh, you don't have enough in you for that, or that you're not somehow fit for it, or that you won't know what to do, or you're not at a high enough place, or whatever may be going on, I really want you to know that the program is laid out in such a guided, beautifully attuned way to the particular things that might be going on in each of our experiences as we're trying to awaken, that if you just go into it with an open heart and a willingness and and an open mind, you will find that the inner guidance comes to you, and there is so much outer guidance and support. Really, every one of us that did this program went to somewhere that we didn't even know was possible inside of ourselves. So the program has a particular robustness and strength and magic to it that, from my heart to yours, I just say, if you've been wanting to make that difference in your own life in the world, we'd be honored if you would join us.
Beautiful. Well, you are all such luminous souls, so wise and grounded and real as well. And so thank you for being you. And Julia, thank you also for your contributions to this incredible offering to the world. So thank you all for making the time to spend this last hour and a little bit with us. And if you are called to go further, you're warmly welcome to put in an application and take the leap and go for it. So again, all the details are at enneagramcertificationprogram.com. Many blessings.